Right, a very good morning and welcome to Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Ndimuli, flying solo this morning. It is the 18th of November 2024. Mambo inachemka sawa sawa. It is 37 days to Christmas, so very soon tutaanza kuweka juu Christmas trees. Meanwhile, a lot of discussions happening across board and a lot to do with the church. So this is a Star today. Smart people read the Star, quoting the church, Ruto Rigathi all-out war. That is a big discussion all through. Yes, so that and a lot more we'll be discussing with my panelists this morning. The Park panel every Monday, Matha Karua, Philip Kisia and Samuel Pugisio will be in studio for this conversation. So do stand by for that. A quick look at the other dailies. We've just looked at the Star. How agencies are stealing roads cash. That's the People Daily this morning. We talk about Auditor General painting a grim picture of the conduct of Kenya, Kera and Kura on use of taxpayers' money meant for key infrastructure. On the Standard today, Gachagua, is life better now that I'm impeached? That's a question that the former deputy president is asking, and that is what forms a big headline on the front page of the Standard today. Other discussions to do with chronic wastage in schools and the rate of student dropout. That's a Standard. On the Daily Nation, 2027, and this is something that probably will excite some people. Matiang'I taps Botswana, polls expert. Former Interior Minister Fred Matiang'I has signed a contract with a firm that led ex-Israeli Mossad agent Ari Ben Menashe, who powered the surprise victory of Dr. Duma Boko in recent Botswana polls as he seeks to unseat President William Ruto in the 2027 polls. Definitely a span in the works there. On the front page of the Daily Nation, mlima umeenda ni swali pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema dalili zajitokeza kuwa mlima Kenya umemponyoka Ruto, hili likiwa pigo kwake katika kura za mwaka 2027. Tutarejelea kuangalia habari pale. Anakaa pale ni kama amepigwa na butwa. Ile picha ametumia kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Matters business, bank CEOs summoned over costly loans and cheap deposits. CBK is concerned that banks are slow to lower lending rates, with the average return on fixed deposit rate falling to 11.24%. That's the Business Daily this morning. Beyond our borders, and this is a regional paper, but they still talk about more to do with Kenya. The big headline on the front page of the weekly East African. They say Nairobi is gambling on new visa fees. Kenya's revised newly introduced electronic travel authorization ETA fees, leaving players in the tourism sector worried it could be another barrier to the free movement that the sector relies on to boost sales. And this happens as we're entering the holiday season. What exactly will it mean for travelers? It is a big story there on the front page of the East African. Other key highlights on the front page of this paper: Africa's cautious, hopeful climate bargain at meet at Baku in Azerbaijan. The continent insists on S1.3 trillion. This is US dollars 1.3 trillion a year for climate justice, but rich polluters are pushing back. Ile pesa walisema ya COP iko wapi? It's a photo they've also used there on the front page of the East African Climate Injustice, COP29 going on in Baku, Azerbaijan. Tshisekedi pushes for law review. Opposition reads malice in the idea and seeks assurance. Matters DRC. Siasa za DRC pia zinapamba moto. They are hoping, or they are discussing a review of their constitution. That's the East African. Let's take a look at what's a big headline in Uganda this morning. On the front page of the Daily Monitor, collapse of NGO sector. Apparently they've been boxed into a corner. According to the Daily Monitor, they say that according to the NGO Bureau, which regulates the sector under the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the number of registered NGOs in Uganda drastically declined from 14,000 in 2019 to 5,021 by August 2023, which has dealt a heavy blow to the economy that needs the sector for employment and financial inflows. This is in Uganda, not in Kenya. So the NGO sector struggling in Uganda. They have a dramatic photo there on the front page of the Daily Monitor of someone Police struggling to disarm Uganda's charge d'affaires in Khartoum, Sudan. And also the former Deputy Ambassador to the United States of America, Mr. Dixon Ogwang Okul, at Lango Cultural Center in Liru District, Lira District, yesterday. This was after the ambassador allegedly drew a pistol during the event. So he's there struggling with a pistol and he's asking them, do you know who I am? Do you know? You should know people. Ambassador Okul facing a trough at Lango Leaders event. Quite a dramatic photo there on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Other quick highlights there, why HIV fight in Kwanya has low success rates. You'll realize there's a lot of discussion around HIV and AIDS across the region, even in Kenya currently. And this is as we get closer to World AIDS Day, which is usually marked on the 1st of December. Trump, Uganda second guesses his presidency. The election of Donald Trump in the US after 4 years means Uganda will be eager to know what his second term will mean to them. Of course, you remember that Uganda has really faced a lot of issues when it comes to LGBTQ legislation there, with the US not happy and even issuing sanctions following that piece of legislation. That is a Daily Monitor. Take a look at the second paper in Uganda, that's a New Vision. And you have minerals, government loses billions over experts. Uganda has only 8 inspectors for 100 mines, and they're losing money because of that. That's a big story there on the front page of the New Vision. 4-acre model, Museveni asks Kibale residents to emulate Minister Byakukama. So some of these stories, yes. At least there's a Kenyan there on the front page of the New Vision. MTN clarifies on tax disputes, and we have our very own Sylvia Mulinge, MTN CEO, there on the front page of the New Vision. In Tanzania, Karioko, Samia orders checks. Yes, President Samia Suluhu Hassan yesterday ordered the inspection of all commercial premises in Karioko, Dar es Salaam, following Saturday's collapse of a 4-story building which killed 13 people and injured 84 others. It has been the biggest story this past weekend in Tanzania, the collapse of this building. It is suspected that still there could be survivors under the rubble. This is a very familiar story. So we've heard about this in Kenya as well, the collapse of buildings, 4 5-story buildings, and what that leads to. An investigation in 2006 established that 147 out of 505 buildings that were inspected in Dar es Salaam lacked proper construction documentation. Just like we do in Kenya, same script. 36 were killed in a 2013 disaster, similar disaster, a 16-story building that was under construction came tumbling down in Indira Gandhi Street in Dar es Salaam in March of 2013, killing 36 people. Another one in Changombe Village Inn Hotel collapsed in 2006, killing more people. So this is something that even in Kenya we've seen. It is a big story in Tanzania today. Ni habari hiyo hiyo ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania. Uamuzi mgumu, Rais Samia aagiza magorofa yote Kariokoo kukaguliwa, sio Kariokoo Kenya, Kariokoo Dar es Salaam, kukaguliwa kubaini ubora. Ataka polisi kumhoji mmiliki wa jengo, wapangaji wasimulia wakilia hasara na mikataba. Waliokufa wafika 13 na majeruhi 84. Hisia za waliookolewa jengoni, kuna picha pale kwenye kurasa wa mbele ya baadhi tu waliokolewa kutoka kwenye jengo lililoporomoka kule Dar es Salaam, maeneo ya Kariokoo. Baada ya mabasi, ni zamu ya malori kuanza SGR ya mizigo, wakati safari za Dar, Morogoro kisha Dodoma kwa kutumia treni ya kisasa ya SGR zinduliwa. Wamiliki wa mabasi hawakuona kama hilo litaathiri biashara, lakini baadaye sasa pia waendesha malori wanashangaa kutendaje baada ya treni ya SGR kuzinduliwa. Hizi ndio habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kule Tanzania. And we'll be back to take a look at the dailies locally in depth. And I don't know why the cartoons are popping up because we're not talking about that right now. Let's take a look at the weather situation in Kenya. We start off in Kitui this morning. And as we speak, it is 18 degrees Celsius. Where is this? 18 degrees Celsius as we speak in Kitui. It promises to be a rather sunny day, highs of 27 degrees. No rainfall today. Partly cloudy this morning, but for most of the day it's going to be sunny, highs of 27 degrees in Kitui. In Kisumu, The lakeside city of Kisumu, let's take a look, 19 degrees Celsius as we speak. Also promises to be a rather sunny day, highs of 28 degrees Celsius for most of the day, sunny intervals. In Nakuru, the other city, 13 degrees, quite chilly, 13 degrees Celsius as we speak. Promises to be a sunny day today also, highs of 24 degrees Celsius, no chance of rain there. Let's see, some holiday weather in Malindi. In Malindi, it is 27 degrees Celsius as we speak. This is actually higher than most of the cities I've looked at, the high temperatures they'll experience today. It feels like 31 degrees, but it's actually 27. Promises to be a very sunny day, highs of 31, but chances of thunderstorms later in the afternoon, starting from midday there, so there'll be some rain in Malindi. Holiday weather, 3 millimeters of rainfall, so proper holiday weather, hata kukiwa na manyunyu kiasi sio mbaya sana. And finally, back to Nairobi, the city that they say is in the sun. Let's see if at all there's any sun today. Yes, indeed there is. It is 15 degrees Celsius as we speak, but it promises to be a sunny day. Highs of 26 degrees Celsius, very little chance of rain today. No precipitation, 0 millimeters. So yes, a sunny Monday today. Yeah, remember, it's been a rather wet weekend, but it promises to be a sunny week. But probably kesho kutakuwa na mvua and for most of the week. But for today, you get to enjoy some sun. So that's as far as the weather is concerned. A quick look at our traffic situation in Nairobi this morning. Inasema ni drop pin hapa. So yes, traffic is building up in and around that area around Pangani interchange. It appears green, but there's a bit of red just before you get to that interchange on Thika Road as you get towards town. And then on the interchange, a bit of traffic, slow traffic there, typical Monday traffic at Pangani interchange. If you go farther back, Kiambu Road is looking good, and Thika Road too, not looking bad at all. Shida tu ni hapo, but hiyo ni shida ya kawaida pale Pangani interchange. Juja Road building up slowly. Jogoo Road too building up, areas around just before you get to that Buruburu junction. There's a bit of red there once you leave Manyanja. And you get, so this is not usual. So probably there's an incident around here. After you leave that big Donholm interchange, Manyanja there's a bit of a stretch here of red before you get to Buruburu junction. Further ahead, typical traffic there as you head towards the City Stadium roundabout. Mombasa Road looking good. Southern Bypass, nothing to report there. Langata Road looking good as well. A bit of traffic here once you get to the Nyayo Stadium area. And this is actually on the expressway, so there could be an incident there as well. Mombasa Road heading towards town. This must be the expressway just right above the roundabout at Nyayo Stadium. So hapo kuna shida. A bit of red on the expressway, meaning that there could be an incident there as well. If you can avoid that, please do. Ngong Road looking good. And finally, Wayaki Way into town, nothing to report there. It's looking smooth all the way into town. So that's the traffic situation. And we might check it again probably at about 1:30 to see just how it will be. So just before we get to the papers, I think one in our diary today told you it is 37 days to Christmas. And as far as the KCSE is concerned, we enter the final week today. By Friday, they'll be done with this examination. Today, we have 3 papers: Geography Paper 1, Physics Paper 1, and General Science Paper 2. So, and this, I think most of these are the optional papers. So most people probably have started finishing their KCSE exams. Watoto wanaenda nyumbani. So by the end of this week, shule zinafungwa officially. All right. So let's get back, take a look at the papers in depth. The Star, independent, fresh and different. It's a hard copy I'm holding here of the Star. Smart people read the Star. Quoting the church, Ruto Rigathi all-out war. And you have pictures there of the president on one side with the Nairobi governor and the leader of majority in the National Assembly as he attended church service in Soweto Catholic Church in Nairobi. Then a photo there of The former deputy president, flanked by Githunguri MP Gathoni wa Mushomba and former Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala, as he attended church at Presbyterian Church of East Africa, Kerarapon, for Sunday service. So they're talking about the battle for the soul. Bishops have criticized Kenya Kwanza regime over unfulfilled promises. It has been the biggest conversation even over the weekend. Everyone now running to church. And for the very first time, we even saw President Uhuru Kenyatta, the fourth president of this republic, on the same platform as his successor, William Ruto, at an event that was also attended by the former deputy president in a church, no less, a Catholic church. And it's interesting how the Catholic Church is now the main discussion. Just how influential is the church, and especially the Catholic Church. We'll be looking at this with my panelists later on, just how the church is playing, the role the church plays in Kenyan politics. The quick highlights on the front page of the Star, they make mention of the book Against the Tide by Matha Karua. It's on page 2, why Kibaki did not deal with the Anglo-leasing graft scandal. Wow, so ameanza kufichua maneno mengi. Remember, she was Justice Minister in the Kibaki administration, and she has a lot to say about that administration in her book Against the Tide. The quick highlights, how a dingy Nairobi daycare opened Sabrina's eye to need for giving infants quality start. Reprieve for politician in fraud saga as court declines to force him to pay 636 million shillings. On the back page of the Star, we talk about sports. Playing at home is a source of motivation. This is Olunga. He's explaining the exit after drawing with Zimbabwe last week, bundling them out from the CAF competition. So that's as far as the Star is concerned. Yes, we'll be discussing some of this with my panelists later on. Let's continue looking at the papers. The People Daily, how agencies are stealing roads cash, is a big headline on the front page of this paper. They talk about Auditor General painting a grim picture of the conduct of Kenha, Kera and Kura. These are the agencies concerned with the management of roads in Kenya, on use of taxpayers' money meant for key infrastructure. Pesa zinaenda wapi? Ruto says he will release 2.5 billion shillings to hospitals. It is part of the problem he has with churches. Remember, quite a number of churches ran hospitals and schools, the Catholic Church being one of them. They claim that a lot of money is owed by the government to these schools, and the president now knows he has to pay them for him to have peace. Ama ataandikiwa barua nyingine asalamiwe na makanisa. Inside plot to purge Gachagwa's allies from key house teams. That story continues on page 5 in this paper if you want to read more about that. They make mention of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, MP's former team to rescue CDF amid Raila onslaught. Last week, Raila Odinga came out to criticize the National Assembly's attempt to actually int into some of the coffers, some of the money that is meant for counties, through demanding more money, especially from the roads maintenance levy. And the MPs want more money towards CDF from that levy. And Raila Odinga says that should be money meant for the counties. So right now, MPs, members of the National Assembly and Raila Odinga are not really good friends, but we'll see what happens. Gachagua, is life better now that I'm impeached? That's a question on the front page of the Standard today. Ni swali tu. It's a jibe on the economy. The former deputy president yesterday wondered aloud why Kenyans are facing the same problems he was blamed for, even as President William Ruto said he will ensure his broad-based government thrives. So he says, if Gachagua was a problem and you hiked taxes, why don't you review it downwards now that he left office? Ni swali tu. Anauliza tu swali. Kama mimi ndo nilikuwa shida, mbona unalemewa hata sasa kama nimetoka? Chronic wastage in schools as 200,000 students drop out is another highlight there on the front page. While government insists that all KCP candidates transition to secondary school, the number of students sitting for KCSE tells a different story. And you remember there was a similar story here, I think from Uganda, on the transition rates and the rate of dropouts in schools. When they started, there were about 1.8 million. I'm talking about Uganda. By the time they're finishing high school, they're only about 400,000. So in Kenya, the numbers are a bit better, but still 200,000, that's a high rate of dropouts. The people who finish primary school vis-a-vis those who actually get to the end of high school. You can Have a look at that story in the inside pages of the Standard. Other quick highlights there on the top strip. Unwanted guest, Kenya's most hated bird, Tokunguru, the crow. The story is there on page 2. Wasema imeleta shida sana Mombasa. Na hiyo picha si nzuri sana ukiangalia on page 2 of the Standard. Kunguru amezidi. Care for elders goes a notch higher. Team to audit billions in pension debt, and why Firat turned out a Harambee flop. That story is on the back page of the Standard. Not really on the back page, in the sports pages. Why Engen Firat was not the right man for Harambee Stars, and of course he'll be blamed a lot following that exit from international football by Harambee Stars after drawing 1-1 with Zimbabwe last week. So that's a Standard today. Tuangazie gazeti zingine. Daily Nation. Oh, very interesting. This one will excite so many people. 2027, Matiang'I taps Botswana polls experts, and we have the picture of the former CS for Interior, Fred Matiang'I, who also happened to have been my lecturer at the University of Nairobi at some point. Former Interior Minister Fred Matiang'I has signed a contract with a firm led by ex-Israeli Mossad agent Ari Ben Menashe, who powered a surprise victory of Mr. Duma Boko in recent Botswana polls as he seeks to unseat President William Ruto in the 2027 elections. So this is something to excite political minds, the anticipated or the fact that this could actually be a possibility, the possibility of Fred Matiang'I entering the fray as we head towards 2027. Could this change the game? Just think about it. Fred Matiang'I for president. Former CS has committed to a retainer fee of 32 million shilling in deal with the Canadian firm. So it's actually serious if at all he's going to spend that kind of money for feasibility checks. 32 million shillings. Is he a serious presidential candidate for 2027? That's a very interesting story, and I'm sure it excites so many people. It does excite me. Let me admit. Other quick highlights on the front page of the Daily Nation. Auctioneers go after senator over 1.25 million rent arrears. So this is a Nairobi court has ordered Runda police to assist fantasy auctioneers to access Karen Nyamu's home, to seize household items for sale. It is there on page 3. You can read more about that. Scramble for Uhuru as Mount Kenya political volcano erupts. And yes, this is one of the biggest discussions coming from this weekend. Many pundits have said and have told President William Ruto, if at all he doubted his support base, or rather his level of support in Mount Kenya, then this weekend on his visit to Embu definitely should have told him something. Yeah? As 2027 general election formations start to take shape, key antagonists led by President William Ruto, his former deputy Rigathi Gachagua and Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka are working to win retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's support. Yes, he was present there, and we saw him on the same podium with his successor, as well as a new deputy president, and that has been the biggest discussion. Another highlight on the front page, and if you ask me, this should actually be on many of the papers. More Kenyans have sunk into poverty, according to a report. A new report has revealed how the high cost of living and unemployment sunk millions of Kenyans into poverty, leaving 2 in 5 Kenyans poor in 2022. 2 in 5, that's 40%. With 1 in 3 citizens unable to meet the minimum food requirements. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Poverty Report shows that in 2022, some 20.16 million Kenyans lived in overall conditions of poverty. 16 million citizens could not afford basic food needs, and some 3.6 million people were in abject poverty. Now, at least 1.1 million people sunk into poverty between 2021 and 2022, according to this study. That's a study by the KNBS, the State of the Nation. On the back page, you talk about first flight, first international race, Miriam Jelagat's dream coming true. Matters athletics. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo, wanasema mlima umeenda ni swali tu. Wameuliza pale, dalili zajitokeza kuwa mlima Kenya umemponyoka Ruto, hili likiwa pigo kwake katika kura za mwaka 2027. And sometimes you wonder what political calculation this was, that 2 years after winning election, basically depending so much on that voter base, then it just ponyokas you like that. What kind of political calculation is that? Was it really necessary to provoke such a dissent in that area politically? Anyway, balaa wanasema pale, baada ya mapokezi baridi ya rais katika hafla ya kidini Embu Jumamosi, wadadisi wasema eneo hilo limemtema kisiasa. Hivyo basi anahitaji kuibuka na mbinu mpya za kujizolea ufuasi. Yes, many pundits are saying, Mr. President, if at all you doubted that the mountain had left you, then your visit to Embu should have made it very clear to you. If you're still doubting, anyway, wanasiasa wana mambo yao. Ujerumani, Uholanzi ni kazi kwisha. It's been the international break for football across the globe. So quite a number of results from international matches this morning. Gavana yako wa Karangwa, Senator Okech aungana na wabunge kutoka kaunti ya Migori kumpa pressure ya kisiasa. And I told you matters HIV are now getting prominence on the front pages. Wanasema ukimwi huua zaidi wanaume. Ripoti yasema japo HIV huambukiza wanawake zaidi, wanaume ndio hufa zaidi. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Wanaume, mjichunge. Pale juu, Mbadi ya ahidi usawa katika ugavi wa pesa, hapa kubadili namna pesa za ustawi nchini zinavyogawika. Na taheshimu ushauri wa makanisa, naibu wa rais apuuzilia mbali hofu kuwa serikali itawawinda wakosoaji. Rais alisema alisalamiwa. Maaskofu walijitokeza wakamsalamia na akapokea salamu. Matters business, bank CEOs summoned over costly loans and cheap deposits. So the central bank will this week step up pressure on commercial banks to cut lending rates, which is something positive if it actually happens. To cut lending rates at a crunch meeting with chief executives of top lenders who have started lowering interests on savings. So on one hand, the interest being demanded by banks on loans is very high, but on your deposits, wanafinya kidogo. Unclaimed cash, shares and dividends cross 75 billion shillings. These unclaimed cash, shares and dividends surrendered to a state agency have crossed the 75 billion shilling mark, reflecting the difficulty in reuniting the idle wealth as investors, including tycoons, show disinterest in reclaiming the assets. Probably you should check. Hii pesa ni mingi, na maybe you have some of yours there. Pale kwa Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority UFA, nasema there's 75 billion shillings that no one is claiming, unclaimed assets. Na unasema huna pesa. Na maybe baba yako ama anko yako walikuachia. Other quick highlights on the ticker. CBK's headache as 4 directors exit. State plans air tickets, aircrafts, parts, tax cuts. Hey, quite a mouthful. Kenyan gets 1.43 billion tax waiver and boost for coffee exporters as EU defers deforestation rules. Those are some of the highlights on the Business Daily this morning. Na tutafungia hapo kuangalia magazeti. Let's take a look at the cartoons now. There's a cartoon on the Daily Nation today. Kuna nguruwe pale kwa hii cartoon. Sio mimi nimemchora. Cartoonist anaitwa Iga pale Daily Nation. Sema let the church clear the speck in its eye. But ye mwenye kuna log moja ya lies. I tell you, mambo ya uongo imezidi. Makanisa walisema jamaa fulani anadanganya sana. Lakini kukakuwa na reaction mingi sana. Most politicians defending and saying no. We kwa makanisa nyenye mnakosoa sana huyu jamaa. Can you look at the speck in your eye? Forget about the log in mine. That's a Daily Nation. On the Standard, Harry makes a comeback there, and he has a picture, this very interesting image. He's actually just redone the picture in Embu where the president, his deputy, and the former president were there. Alafu kuna makanisa upande hilo ameshikilia Biblia na wanasema change now. They're talking to these people. But now the deputy president, who was seen having a tete-a-tete with the retired president, and Auliza, any advice you can share? But the gentleman was quite happy. Maybe he gave him some advice, but at least I know he shook his hand so hard. Bwana Kindiki, I don't think ashasalamiwa hivyo. And the People Daily finally, inaitwaje hii? Hii game huwa inaitwaje ya kuvuruta kamba. This is the People Daily Star No Stake tug of war, yes. So we have on both ends, Mwananchi pulling this side and the church pulling on the other end. Hapa katikati, the two gentlemen, caricature of the president and the now candidate for AUC chairpersons, post Raila Odinga. So what exactly are they doing? They're pulling on opposite sides towards each other, but on opposite ends, with the church on the one hand and Mwananchi on the other side. Wewe jichambulie hiyo katuni na maanisha nini? That's a People Daily. Just before we take a break, let's see if there's an update in as far as traffic is concerned. If you're using Thika Road towards town, mambo ni namna hii. Pale past the Utali Drift, just as you're getting to Mathare Mental Hospital there, it is a very long stretch of red that goes even beyond the Pangani interchange and partly into Muranga Road as you head towards town. So if that is your direction and that is your route to town, tafadhali. If you can avoid it, please. This will affect even people using Kiambu Road as you head towards town. The Pangani interchange is not looking nice at all. And you can see why, because it is all red even into Muranga Road, meaning that is extra slow traffic. Jogoo Road this morning, I wanted to see if that trade has cleared around. No, it has partly cleared just around the what do you call it, the Buruburu junction into Jogoo Road, but there's still slow traffic there, probably because of matatus. Bits of red as you head towards town, getting closer towards the City Stadium roundabout. So traffic is building up on Jogoo Road, but normal traffic, that is. The other thing we had seen was around Nyayo Stadium, Pale Juu. It seems to have cleared. It was around on the expressway right above the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. It seems to have cleared, so the expressway is back to normal. Other quick tributaries into town, Langata Road looking good, Mbagathi Way looking good as well. Ngong Road, nothing to report there apart from that slow traffic at the Prestige Plaza. And finally, Wayaki Way into town, it is Nyue. So that's the traffic situation this morning. Remember, today we'll be having Kipruto Rapkirwa, Philip Kisi and Samuel Pogisio for our State of the Nation discussion just after the break. A lot to talk about: the Catholic Church, the return of Uhuru Kenyatta into public life, and also Fred Matiang'I making a comeback and actually spending quite a substantial amount of money to check the feasibility and the possibility of him running for president come 2027. Quick, very interesting discussions. You don't want to miss this. Remember, being a Monday, we'll have Monday Blitz later on at 8 a.m. with Shutterboy and Fred Arocho discussing a lot coming from the international footballing weekend. So a lot of results from there as well. Remember, Harambee Stars was bundled out of international football last week after drawing 1-1 against Zimbabwe. What does this mean for Endin Firat going forward? So let's take a break right now. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome. I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena
State of the Nation, you're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indemuli. The big discussion today, and coming from the weekend, is about the influence of the church in Kenyan politics. There's a lot of mention, especially on the front page of the Star, quoting the church Ruto Rigathi all-out war. And we'll be looking at this and other discussions as well with my panelists this morning. Gachagua, is life better now that I'm impeached? That's a question on the front page of the Standard. Matters business bank CEOs are summoned over costly loans and they're being directed to actually lower interest rates. And on the Daily Nation, 2027, Matiang'I taps Botswana polls expert. And this is actually looking to unseat President William Ruto in 2027 elections, and probably we'll start with that conversation. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning, starting on my immediate right, Kipruto Rapkirwa, who served as Agriculture Minister in the Kibaki One administration. Karibu sana and good morning.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, makes a return to this panel. Bwana Kisia also served as Town Clerk of this great city of Nairobi. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Samuel Pogisio, who served as ICT Minister in the Kibaki II administration and also as Senate Majority Leader in the 12th Parliament. Bwana Pogisio, it's a pleasure to have you in studio today.
Good morning.
Yes, before we get to matters church and the influence it plays in Kenyan politics, there's this interesting headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, matters 2027 elections. And I know there's an obsession in Kenya, we always talk about the next election. Even before we even get to midterm, we're still on the first half of this term, but you're already talking about 2027. Matiang'I taps Botswana polls expert. He has committed a retainer fee of 32 million shillings in this deal with a Canadian firm. It's the same firm that was used. He has signed a contract with a firm led by ex-Israeli Mossad agent Ari Ben Menashe, who powered the surprise victory of Dr. Duma Boko in the recent Botswana polls as he seeks to unseat President William Ruto in the 2027 elections. Now, this could probably excite a number of Kenyans, the entry of Fred Matiang'I into the fray. Many questions have been asked about possible candidates for the presidency. And I don't know if this headline excites you, Bwana Karua.
Well, these are very interesting times, and I do want to appreciate that entry of another player is very useful. But I want to advise those on my political divide, that is the alternative view in terms of not with government today, that we need to think of a vessel that is going to harness the fears of many Kenyans and also reduce what the Honorable Pogisio calls trust deficit. We seem not to trust each other sufficiently, and therefore an umbrella organization where all these parties will be anchored is suitable enough to be able to face ODM and the UDA in the next election. Because I'm of very strong suspicion that perhaps William Ruto might fold UDA and defect back to ODM. After all, that was his party in 2007. And for us to be able to gather momentum sufficient to face the onslaught from Raila and Ruto in 2027, we need also to think of a vehicle that can harness the potential of the current opposition to the status quo. Mm-hmm. That to me is very important. The other factor is the presence of Uhuru Kenyatta in the mix. That is going to be very exciting. And I would want to wish him not to make a statement as of now on who his preferred candidate is.
Okay.
Finally, the issue of GNCs. That is a constituency that is lethal and also very strong. And whoever will be supported by GNCs will definitely create gravitas when it comes to the 2027 general election.
All right. And we'll talk about Uhuru Kenyatta later, but focusing on Bwana Matiang'I for now, Bwana Kisia and Bwana Karua just mentioned the issue of Gen Zs. At the height of the clamor by Gen Zs, they talked, especially on social media, about Fred Matiang'I. He was openly invited by quite a number of people through social media to actually consider running for election as president. Now it would appear he took that seriously. Given the fact that the alternative voice currently appears a bit shaky, not so sure, Matha Karua talks about a new vehicle going forward. Do you think that the entry of Matiang'I in the race is something interesting for the current political landscape?
Well, Fred, good morning and good morning, colleagues. I think the entry of Matiang'I, of course, will cause some little excitement. Matiang'I, when he was given an opportunity to serve in various capacities, he exhibited some level of soberness and some ability in managementship. So I've no doubt that his entry would cause some little excitement. And also the fact that he has taken a very serious strategist. When anybody picks an agent from Israel, somebody who has worked for Mossad, someone like Ari Ben, then you need to take him a bit more seriously. But the question would be, who is behind Fred Matiang'I? Okay, a lot has been said, and Kenyans are known to speak, but when it comes to action, different results are rolled out. So, in my view, I think the people who will eventually remove one William Samoei Ruto are the people who will form a team and create an arc moment. We need an arc moment, of rainbow moment of 2002. I think that's what we need right now, because voters in this country, to a large extent, look at two things, and I don't know whether that one has been wiped out. The issue of how much are you giving me? Yes, you've spoken very well, but how much are you leaving behind? Because as you leave, as you seek for votes, I am hungry and angry this time, okay? Then there's the issue of tribe. We are now saying that that issue of tribe will be cancelled by a huge voter bloc, the Gen Zs. But there's a danger, because most of the Gen Zs have not registered as voters. Number two, they don't even have IDs. And we are aware that the current regime is not in a hurry to register new voters. We are aware that the current regime has no intention of facilitating people to get, the young people to get IDs. And without an ID, without a voter's card, how can you participate in the general? So we are facing a very serious danger that we need to start interrogating right now. And we need to be a bit more serious on this particular issue and force Zakayo, one, not to suppress the Gen Z's vote, because that could be his intention. Number two, that he must reconstitute IBC. I read somewhere where you're saying that in another 10 days, I will, propose some names. It is not his IBC. It is the IBC of the Kenyan people. For heaven's sake, he must be reminded that he has a constitutional duty to make sure that this IBC is formed, not tomorrow, but today. In closing, Fred, we need to be very careful, because you are dealing with somebody who is already in power. You are dealing with somebody who is extremely thirsty of power, and he can go to whatever length to make sure that he's not removed from power. So what we should be looking forward to is a team. Let us form a team, a formidable team. Let's come together with one common goal of removing one Zakayo from power. That should be our goal. Who is our driver for that time in being is not important. In 2002, we had Kibaki. And you can say what Kibaki did. Kibaki just had a good team. all the three gentlemen here were part of the Kibaki administration, and you can see what we did. And therefore, well, I welcome Matiang'I, but again, the same Gen Zs were questioning some of his past. They have raised some issues. There are some gray areas. There were issues, and we know this. So whether they have forgotten those issues that are around Fred Matiang'I or not, I really don't know. But that's up to the voters to make a decision.
All right. Bwana Pugisi, what's your take on the possibility that Matiang'I could enter the fray for the 2027?
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, colleagues. I want to support what has been said, and just adding that Fred Matiang'I is a force to reckon with. He's a strong candidate, given that he has a service record in this country. He handled a very difficult docket. I mean, mostly one very difficult docket. He definitely was, like we say, is a fresh entry into politics, for sure. I don't think Fred has ever entered into any political battle, and so he's untested. And hopefully what he's doing now is exploratory. Try to find out and feel a feel for what people think about him, and what are his chances. And so engaging a research firm or a lobby group is a good way to do this. It really good for Western, usually works for Western democracies. I'm not so sure that it works very well in the Kenyan situation. It's a very difficult situation. So if Botswana is a place to compare with, it's not going to be easy, because the Kenyan communities are so many. The tribal aspect of life in Kenya is bigger than in Botswana, and then we have, the kind of people that vote for us, now are beginning to look at their livelihood. They've got problems and challenges. So it may not be an easy thing for a research firm entering Kenya to get the real data to help sort out what Matiang'I is looking for. However, he's welcome to join forces with everybody who is here already. And I think that the only chance that you have in Kenya is you can't be a loner. You cannot come and run by yourself. Even if you had so much money, you just can't come and say, I want to run for myself. You have to come and join a movement, be part of a movement that already exists, or cause the whole group to become your movement, if you can, which means turning what exists now into your movement, so if you can. So I'd like to encourage that is a good name for politics in this country, especially among the Gen Zs. They have asked if he could be their president at some point, but that's not a guarantee. And I think also operating from where he is, I think still working outside of the country, he will need to be back here, at least within the year or so, to be able now to join the rest. It is good to encourage him to bring all those resources back to Kenya, bring his energy back to the campaign. There's enough, in my view, there's enough personnel, there's enough political brains here in Kenya to drive the win if we all bring ourselves together. So I do want to say that what the headlines, the only thing about the headlines that I'm sure makes it serious is getting a team that comes to do exploration for him in Kenya. And yet you know that Kenya is a very tough situation for any research to really get results. So let me wish him well. It's a good new face in politics, but let him come and join hands with people like Kalonzo Musyoka, people like Eugene, and the rest of us over here, and others. Let's move in one direction. I think what Philip said is that we need to create such a momentum And that momentum should be like the one of 2002, which a lot of us participated in one way or another, but eventually, it ended up being that I think you may have lost the vote, but the momentum was there. And 2002, then 2003, they won. 1997 tried, it wasn't as strong. 2002, it became out as strong. People sacrificed their positions elsewhere to become one force, and I think that's what we need to do. Yeah.
And Matha Karua, you had mentioned the issue of President Uhuru Kenyatta. There's also a highlight there on the front page of the Daily Nation, scramble for Uhuru as Mount Kenya political volcano erupts.
Yeah.
Fred Matiang'I also worked very closely with Uhuru Kenyatta, and probably was his right-hand man, so to say. That could speak a lot, especially the fact that we've seen the return of the former president back to public life for the very first time on a public platform alongside the president. If at all, Matiang'I has the support of his former boss, that would change the game completely, even to the formation that you talk about.
Well, there are very interesting moments because, as I said, this issue of trust deficit among Kenyans is a factor that we must play along with so that we can overcome some of the challenges. Yes, President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be a very serious factor in the next election, but it may not be sufficient if certain pockets will not feel sufficiently involved. What do I have in mind? I remember in the run-up to 2002 elections, there were three political formations that came into one. That is the formation of Wamalwa Kijana, Mwai Kibaki, and Charity Ngilu, who at the beginning did not really want to share the platform, having been competitors in the previous election. But a momentum was built that by September, 18th of September 2002, the three leaders had accepted to work together. And at that particular time, KANU was still a strong party in power. And now, after the fiasco in Kasarani, our colleagues from KANU came to give us impetus into an already existing formation. And I remember the Honorable Raila Odinga in the late Omino's house here in Muthaiga. By 3 o'clock, he said, yes, you people in NRK may win. As in LDP, we may win. But if we don't coalesce our forces, we are likely to allow the project to go through. By then, the project was the immediate former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. And if with that kind of information, and with that kind of fear, we now accepted that we subordinate our ambitions, especially those who are presidential candidates like the late Saitoti, Raila himself, and Kalonzo Musyoka, and they accepted that Kibaki be the flag bearer for purposes of ensuring that there is no possibility of KANU coming back to town. The same thing can also be drawn when it comes to this. And that's why I was saying President Uhuru Kenyatta should wait until this kind of formation formats out so that he does not make a decision before he realizes how it is a political landscape. Yes, granted that President Ruto may not be as popular as he was in the last election, but you cannot underrate an incumbent who has a network, who has the resources, and imagine that anybody running and without consideration of some of the players who have been in the field, like the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, the Honorable Amalwa, and many of us. We may not be presidential material, but we can also influence. But let's go back to the experts in Botswana. Botswana, as you know, is a very small population. It is the size of one of the provinces, in one of the counties, like Kiambu County, in terms of population. It is 4% of the, compared to the population of Kenya, is 4%. Botswana also has another political formation where the chiefs form some kind of colleges that will determine who are the leaders. Botswana also has a parliamentary system. That's why the current president, Boko Duma, got 35 out of 61 members of parliament for him to be allowed to form the government. And finally, but not to dismiss any player, is that we need to use the Botswana experience only in terms of political formation. The party that won is what they call umbrella for democratic coalition. And it is therefore clear that it was an umbrella of political parties, including the one of the immediate former president, the former president, Ian Kama, to beat his successor, because that's the only way that he came to town to make sure that his successor, Masisi, does not win a second term. So all these issues inform us in terms of what is our political thinking, what is our future, but critical player is President Uhuru Kenyatta and the GNC and the Mount Kenya bloc. If all of them will conspire to deprive the current president a chance to win again, they are likely to succeed. Yes. But they must pick the right formation, the right team, with all the players involved.
Definitely Matiang'I's name on the front pages today does elicit some bit of excitement. The other individual who elicits this kind of excitement is President Uhuru Kenyatta, who at the weekend was seen publicly for the very first time in a very long time, especially alongside the current president, his successor, William Ruto. We'll continue talking about the former president after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Don't go too far.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter. Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers.
we dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a chef.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. We continue looking at the headlines with my panelists, Kipruto Arap-Kirwa, Philip Kisia, and Samuel Pugisio. Just before the break, we were talking about Uhuru Kenyatta and his return to public engagement. That too caused quite some excitement, Bwana Kisia, seeing the former president on the same platform with his successor. It's not a scene that we've seen in the past 2 years, but definitely some excitement. Seeing the kind of cheers that were given to the former president on that platform and the kind of reception that his successor received. Definitely people are excited to see the former president. And Bwana Karua says his word will mean a lot going to 2027.
Fred, you know, even before I comment on what we just said, it is very interesting that the two daily newspapers, both Standard and Daily Nation, they don't appear to have given the president any attention. Yes, he's a head of state. Mm-hmm. If you look at Standard, they talk about Gachagua, the impeached former deputy president. If you look at Daily Nation is focusing on Matiang'I, somebody who is just, now a Raia like us. And the president is somewhere, I don't know where, but he's somewhere. So my interpretation of this would be that there's a serious problem. Not just what happened in the welcome that the fourth president, Uhuru Kenyatta, got in Embu. But that seems to be the mood in the entire nation. You know, for some of us who have been here for some time, we remember that when Moi took over power, people had a lot of love for Moi, a lot. It took almost 10 years before they started having issues with Mzee Moi. Now, the hustler man comes, people, half of the country at least, like the fellow. But 2 years down the line, almost the entire nation is against William Samoei Ruto. There must be a problem. So, I mean, Uhuru, so if you look at Moi, different scenario. If you look at Uhuru, came in, towards the tail end, there was a problem in Central Province. So they seem to have disliked some of the things that Uhuru did, okay, before he left office. Okay? But in this case, if you now compare Moi, Arap Moi, Muigai wa Kenyatta, Samoei wa Ruto, so Moi wa Ruto, if you compare, they seem not to be a dislike, but there seem to be some hatred against Samoei Ruto. Therefore, this man needs a lot of soul searching within himself. He needs to sit down in a room somewhere and ask himself a lot of questions and do some reflection. And then invite Rachel into that room and ask Rachel to be very honest and truthful. What is going wrong? How come just after 24 months that there seems to be a lot of hatred against me? Most probably, Rachel will be more truthful and tell him where things are going wrong. So I was not surprised that the fourth president, Jomo and then Uhuru Kenyatta, received the reception they received for two reasons, Fred. The first one is that he's a likable character. He's likable. He's easy. And Kenyans are human beings. Uhuru Kenyatta did not handle Kenyans like machines. Okay? Like that, we have no feelings. So the connectivity is bound to be a bit tighter. We can resonate with this man who is a human being. He's warm. Now, the other good friend of mine, my very good friend, the president, the fifth one, he seems to be a bit, a bit disconnected from people. He doesn't, he's not treating people like human beings. He has forgotten that we have feelings, we are human beings, and we must be treated in a humane manner. So there's a very serious disconnect between the current president and the people that he's governing. They seem to have hatred, heavy, strong hatred against this man. I am saying they seem to have. Okay? So you can do your own interpretation, but I don't think my analysis is wrong at all, because if we go by what happened in Embu, okay, even the religious leader, I think Muheria, tried very hard to make the president comfortable by telling the congregants that, please, we are in church and don't be so hard on our guest. But you see the mood. He couldn't control the mood. He couldn't control the crowd. They expressed themselves when the certain names were mentioned, and in this case, because it happened, the president's name was mentioned, the crowd seemed to be unhappy and gloomy. Then they mentioned the new one, the new entrant, Kithure Wakindiki. Same thing. People, it was as if they were in a cemetery. It was as if they were in a cemetery, in a morgue or somewhere. But when Uhuru's name was mentioned, there was so much excitement. And both, all the gentlemen seated there. So there's definitely something that has disconnected people from the current president. And, so they're comparing. They're saying, okay, this one seems to have been a human being. He was warm. But this other man appears to be so cold. There's a problem. And I think if I was advising the president, I would not do what the advisors are doing, misleading him and telling him that you're still popular. They must now take him into a small room. Those who want him to survive up to 2027, they should take him into a small room and tell him, Mr. President, you are so unpopular, you are so naked, and you need to change gear.
For President William Ruto sitting side by side with his predecessor, probably the message was clearer with Uhuru Kenyatta there on the same platform, that his popularity in that region is waning. The presence of Uhuru Kenyatta on that platform communicated a lot in terms of the reception by those people. According to the Taifa Leo anauliza mlima umeenda, the presence of Uhuru Kenyatta there and the kind of reception given to him on the same platform that the president was. Is that the proper message? Is that the exact message that William Ruto needed? Probably, as Bwana says, his advisors have been misleading him. Is the message now clear?
Fred, it is, it's very interesting that, first of all, we are all happy to see Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Even those of us who are not in Embu, just to see him back in the country looking healthy and walking. Because remember, many times people have said he's unwell, some people have even killed him, and so on. So it was very, very good. Sometimes just going quietly, the way he did, mind your own business, people tend to reflect Uhuru Kenyatta's humility. Actually, it's a very interesting, former president of Kenya, very popular guy. Now he's gone, after handing over power, he's gone into his own businesses, and then he comes back And the people have a thirst for him because he had warned them. He had given them, he had spoken to them the truth. He told them, you guys, you will regret this one day. You're going to remember me someday. You're going to remember what I'm saying now. And now they're playing back those things that he said and understanding that he really, we really offended Uhuru when the way they offended him. You remember there was a time when the same question was asked in Uhuru's time. Mlima imehama, imeenda. It is true. He lost the Mlima, but now the Mlima is longing for him. And he's not going to run as president, but they're longing for his counsel, words of wisdom, because he really spoke to them about the future. And he told them how much he has brought them to the place where they are right now. Uhuru is a very prominent and a very critical part and parcel of the life of the mountain. I mean, he's their leader. He's their leader. They may have run away from him, but he's their leader. He's going to have to say something, and they will definitely listen to him. It was very interesting to see them side by side. First of all, it has now come out that actually Uhuru had been invited for that event, and that the president made arrangements to join them later, and for some reason, it was like a late night transition, a late night confirmation that he was coming, and he had to be there, and so the people, I think there were people who were prepared for the invited guests. Things have happened, and like my friends are saying, and of course I sympathized with the governor of Embu, Cecily Mbarire, who was now trying to read the riot act on the people. How do you behave like that, after my guest? I mean, that's not your guest. First of all, he's the president of the republic, and is a big politician who has decided to come to attend this function. It was straight away after the bishops have already told him, told the president that things are not good. Actually, it's just a day after, and the president was. Not maybe 2 days after, the president had tried to answer the Catholic bishops, okay? And now he's attending the event. And in this event, by the way, this event is the installation of a new bishop. And in the Catholic Church, installation of a new bishop means all the bishops have to be present there. So the same bishops who issued a statement suddenly are again together. And that really would make you feel cold, because it's like they're about to issue another statement in your presence. And it can be, it was not easy. So what happens now? The question that the newspaper is asking is, Mlima, has it gone? That is a question that should be on William Ruto's mind. William has all intentions of becoming a good president, maybe becoming a good president. We've said here, and I've said it again, that his choice of advisors, his choice of people to work with has been the problem. When the president confesses that he is lonely at the top, there is something that needs to be addressed there. Is he addressing it? I'm not so sure. Because I look at every time I see new appointments, and I can imagine, are they useful for his objective, his goal, his dream, his vision, or they're just appointments? Should he sit down and re-look at his appointments and say, whom can I really trust? Who can really trust me? Who can trust my vision? Because this vision is being carried by him, but it's not been able to diffuse it, to allow it to be carried by other people. And that's where we are going wrong. So I do know, I know Uhuru Kenyatta, look at his demeanor. He was very humble. He came to the church, he says, I'm just a raya. I just watch everything on TV now and listen to the radio. He makes it look like he's a very happy man where he is, but he wishes this country well. And it'd be good for him to come, and not to politicize, but just come and be able to give advice and join with Kenyans in showing them that his intentions as president were very good, and now they should listen to his advice. The mountain needs him. Kenya needs him. By the way, it's not just the mountain. Uhuru was a much more nationalistic man. He was a nationalist. So he can go anywhere in this country and be received almost the same way that he was received in Mount Kenya. He has not interfered with anybody's work, but he wants, as I am. If I'm not a member of parliament right now, but if I go to West Pokot, I can give counsel. If Philip goes to Western, he can give counsel. Same thing with Mheshimiwa there, because you are part and parcel of the leadership, whether you're in parliament or not.
Okay. Bwana Karua, swali imeulizwa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Taifa Leo. Mlima imeenda. Is it now clear to the president? Probably he needed to go there himself, physically, just to gauge the ground.
Well, it's very interesting, Fred, from the narrative given by the Honorable Samuel Pogisho. It's almost clear that the president invited himself to the function, having known that the former president was going to be present, perhaps either to weigh his popularity or to diffuse a situation that is almost running away. The situation that I feel is running away is that of the Catholic Church, because the issues they raised are fundamental. If it's the cost of living, we know. If it is the corruption spiraling, we know. If it is the number of promises the current president has given, which turn out to be lies, we know. And therefore, for him to have had the courage at Tangaza College to ask them not to be victims of the things they are talking about was foolhardy, to say the least, because you cannot deny the things that we know. We cannot deny that the health system has failed. We cannot deny the fact that the G2G fuel deal is a failure, and it has not lowered the prices of fuel. The lowering is, of course, to do with other external factors. Now, on the issue of President Uhuru being there, I was excited at the reception, not because it was counter to his successor, but because I believe in this school of thought that any leader who has occupied certain space must be given due respect. At times I get nostalgic when President Mkapa was still alive, President Magufuli was alive, and of course Kikwete was still there. When you see former heads of state being given respect, and even in the absence of Mwalimu Nyerere, you find Mama Maria Nyerere is given national recognition. And most of the former prime ministers, whether it's Warioba, whether it's whoever is still alive, they are given due recognition. And Magufuli had made it a system that once in a while, he calls all the former ministers who have served in the Republic of Tanzania. At times he calls all the provincial commissioners former, just for consultation. That is something that you feel nostalgic about. You feel that should be the way we treat leaders who have served in certain positions, because we might have made mistakes, which many of us make plenty of mistakes, but there are also good things that we did. Now, finally, when President Duma Boko was being sworn in, there were three former heads of state. There was Festus Mogae, there was Ian Kama, and the immediate former president, Masisi, attending the inaugural address. And every leader was given their due respect. This is something that I want to remind President William Ruto. And when I talk about this, it's not because I don't like him. In fact, I like him as a person, but I don't like his character. That the fact that you are occupying that office, you are a potential former president. And that potentiality means you must also prepare yourself that how would I want to be treated when I'm not in office? Rubbishing everybody as if you are the only one who has done everything in this town is, to say the least, lack of wisdom. Okay. Therefore, I feel the mountain moved. In fact, it was not even the impeachment of Gachagua alone. It was the impeachment of Gachagua accelerated the movement. In fact, Gachagua is better off out of that system. Otherwise, the mountain had moved because the promises they were given were so high that even us in the Azimio coalition, had we won, the promises William Ruto had made would have destroyed us in the first 1 year or so. So it is good, his own promises visited him, and now all the chickens have come back to roost.
Yeah, ndio swali pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo asubuhi ya leo anauliza mlima umeenda? Ni swali ambalo Rais William Ruto anajiuliza asubuhi hii. Let's focus now on the Catholic Church, and we've seen after that presser where they called out the president and told him quite a number of things last week. It would appear, going by the reaction we've seen from both the president and his people, that this really hit them hard. We've not seen that kind of reaction from towards any other critics of this administration. That one press conference by the Catholic bishops really irked the president, given that now he has had 3 events immediately after that to do with the Catholic Church. That graduation at Tangaza University, he attended the event in Embu, and he was in Catholic Church yesterday for Sunday service. This really hit him hard. Is the influence of the Catholic Church in Kenyan politics, because we've seen the kind of relationship this president has had with other churches and how he came to power. Could this be the game changer, the Catholic influence? Wanakisia.
Allow me to very quickly just add on to what my 2 senior brothers have said. They have mentioned something very interesting about, and I'm putting it into context with the Catholic Church. And they seem to suggest that His Excellency the President could have invited himself in the wee hours of the night for the function. If that happened, then I think we're getting into a very, very serious and desperate situation. I hope he was invited, but he didn't invite himself. But anyway, he is a Kenyan, and he's a believer, and I'm sure any opportunity granted, he'd want to be part of it. Number 2 is the issue of the exit rating of Uhuru Kenyatta. When you've been in a position of influence, a position of power, normally, in most cases, your exit rating is not compared to your entry rating. Yeah. So while Uhuru Kenyatta's rating seemed to have declined on exit, but he's really made a comeback, and people seem to be comparing what they had and what they're having. It's chalk and cheese. But having said that, Fred, the Catholic Church is an institution that has been here for centuries. The Catholic Church, or the religious sector, these are institutions in themselves. And especially the Catholics, you cannot afford to be on the wrong side of the Catholic faith. Okay? Because look at what they run. They have been running schools even before we got independence. So they have been involved in education. Most of these people who are who they are, or who they have been who they were, is because of the Catholic and the Church. And of course, the Muslim faith, and so on and so forth. They have run the health sector. These people have followers in millions. And Kenya is a God-fearing nation. So what comes out of a religious leader, especially not the ones who receive brown envelopes? I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about the ones who receive white envelopes, like the one that was given to Bishop Kimani in Embu. The ones who receive brown envelopes, you have every reason to doubt whether they're really truthful. Okay? So this administration, and I don't know what gave President Ruto the idea that he can actually take up the Catholic Church, that he can take them head on. I think that he was misadvised. Because a friend of mine over the weekend was telling me that there was a time a PC, I think it was in Rift Valley, who took on the the church. And do you know what President Moi did? Was to fire the fellow immediately, because he could not take chances. Moi could not have been on the bad side of the church. And probably that's why Moi survived. But we have a young man, William Ruto, who's, age bracket, who seems to believe that he has capacity to take on the churches. I can tell you for free that he's headed for doom, that his days are now numbered. And when you see somebody in leadership taking on religious leaders, particularly people like the Catholics, you just know that his time has come to an end. Now, having said that, what we saw in Embu, the Catholics issued a statement. The statement they issued was a statement of facts. They talked about shisha, they talked about education failing, they talked about, they talked about issues, cost of living. They talked about issues that are affecting Kenyans. But what happened? The government, through the so-called advisors, an array of them, they went helter-skelter. They started issuing statements. All of them were issuing statements. All of them. Now you wonder, these are a set of people who have issued a statement that they have put their thoughts in. And what do you do? Instead of responding to the issues they have raised, you have about 20, 30 characters issuing statements. This actually confirms that the communication strategy, the communication team of William Ruto is completely disjointed. And the quicker he reorganizes his communication team, the better for him. But I think this is the end of him. When you start fighting church or religion, you're coming to the end. But on the flip side, because I think in less than 72 hours we've seen President Ruto trying to make a comeback. He was even in a Catholic church after attending Embu, where the reception was very cold. He still had the guts, and give him credit, to attend another Catholic service yesterday. But what really annoyed me, is that you cannot speak one thing and do the other thing. He gave a gift of 5 million shillings. The same Catholic bishops are talking about corruption. They should have, I'm hoping that gift will be returned if it has been given. If it has not been received, they should not receive it. Because we need to interrogate the sources of funds. How can one human being just go to church and say, I hear you're building a house for the bishop and I'm giving you 5 million shillings. How many bishops is he going to build houses for? We must start interrogating our leaders.
Okay.
I think time has come where hard questions need to be asked. They removed Rigathi Gachagua because of the same thing, that he could not explain his wealth. It is time President William Ruto is asked the same questions.
All right. The influence of the Catholic Church, especially on Kenyan politics, that's a discussion right now. Let's take a short break. We'll be back to continue with that.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journey.
Welcome back. We continue with the State of the Nation right here at TV47 with my panelists Kipruto Rapkirwa, Philip Kisia, and Samuel Pugisio. Bwana Pugisio, I now want to direct it to you on this issue of the Catholic Church. The kind of reaction we saw from government, the police service, many supporters of President William Ruto is an indication that that criticism, that statement by the Catholic Church really hit hard this administration. It goes to speak about the power the church has. We've seen the relationship, especially William Ruto has had with a number of church leaders, the Pentecostal bishops. But the Catholic Church coming out like that, that definitely, given the reaction, hit William Ruto hard, and we've seen him trying to counter by attending a number of events of the Catholic Church. Do you think that this could actually be the game changer for William Ruto and the Catholic Church, just the discovery that they're this powerful?
Fred, the Catholic Church were doing their mission and they were doing their pastoral work. The church, the bishops were doing their pastoral work. They are not necessarily hitting at Ruto personally. They're just hitting at the problems that the country is facing. And if he had decided, for example, to go to the Catholic Church and say, I have heard you, and please let's work together on what can I do, you know. I saw yesterday the governor of Nairobi trying to say he's only been there for 2 years, you know, he's trying to explain away things. But that is not the issue. The issue is, do you hear us? Have you heard what the church is saying? You know, and if you don't listen, by the way, the best thing for a leader, especially like William Ruto now, is to be a good listener, to listen. And particularly listen to the church, universal, but particularly now, the Catholic bishops. The Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops does not come out every day to speak. It takes time. And by the time you have a letter signed by all the bishops in Kenya, including the archbishops and the cardinal, you know that's a very serious matter. But maybe the thing that I want to say here is maybe the government does not understand the structure of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is an Episcopal church. It is a church that has systems led by bishops and all the way to the Pope. It's tied to a government level type of thing. And it's by the time you have the nuncio here, is like the ambassador for the Vatican here. And then you have, of course, the Holy Father. And the structure is down. You need to understand that from the level of priesthood all the way to the Pope in the Catholic Church, that network is connected not only here on earth, but all the way to Jesus Christ and to heaven. So the whole idea is that once you become a priest, you're already in that network. So the second thing you need to know is that every Sunday in the Catholic Church, a message is the same in all the churches. And so all priests declare the same thing in all the churches every Sunday. So it's not only what happened in Embu or in the conference. That letter would be read in all the churches of Kenya. And so you need to understand that. It is not just, you see, the Catholic Church, I think, is the only one that speaks through the House of Bishops, as you call them, the Conference of Bishops. The other churches where one person is a leader, those are the ones that I think the president deals with a lot better, because one person can be told to influence the rest, not in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has a hierarchy, and that's what he needed to understand. Number two, he needed to understand that by the time the men of cloth dress or wear those robes and come together from all over. I've driven together, I've driven from Lodwar, from Marsabit, all of them, to come and sit together. By that time, they have already reached a point that they must communicate this to the president. If the president had his networks, he would have already done his homework, that by the time they're issuing that statement, reach out to them. Reach out to them. Or even thereafter, after they have issued the statement, humble yourself. Reach out to them. And possibly just say, what can I do? I mean, he's a Christian. William Ruto is a Christian. He needs to understand sometimes the reason we are Christians is that we are sinners and we make mistakes. And we sometimes have to say, what can I do to regain your confidence? What can I do? But the issue that the Catholic Church has in that letter is the issue that would have been said by any Kenyan. Everything that they listed there, everything could be said by any Kenyan today. Okay. And if I were to write a letter, I would probably write the same kind of letter. What are the issues facing Kenyans today? And when are they going to be addressed? Mm-hmm. I'm not an advisor for the president. But I would say, let us stop any further promises. Stop. Stop. Call your people and say, let's stop promising. Let us start dealing with what we have already promised. Okay. The most important things that touch on the lives of the people is this shisha, for example. Take one example. It is hurting people. People have left without treatment. People are dying. And the president should just say, I want to take this on myself. I want the people of Kenya to be treated. I want people to get attention. This thing, let us stop. If it's not working, cancel it, let's move back. These things have even been advised by many people. So let me just say that when the statement comes, and all Kenyans should read that statement afresh, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops touched the raw nerve that any president would say, hey, where are these people who work for me? Mm-hmm. Bring them in here. Mm-hmm. All of you come. How come this issue still persists and have given you jobs? And that's why I keep saying the president needs to fire some of his advisors and sit down with real friends who will tell him the truth. Okay. They may not be the ones around him now. They will tell him the truth. Privately, call them, say, what's this that's going on? This is a time for him to, I guess, make amends about his appointments.
We've seen, Bwana Karua, we've seen quite a number of times bishops trooping to State House, and the president must have been sitting pretty, given understanding the kind of relationship he has had with church and church leaders, that he can always invite them for private meetings, and he's comfortable with that. He must have been shocked to see this kind of reaction, that probably he's losing control of that group as well. On one hand, Mlima imeenda, then the church is part of the problem.
You see, Fred, at times it is dangerous when you listen to certain community forums, because I'm in one forum that has people from Western Kenya, another one people from my community, and they seem to be reducing these issues into community, in the sense that, of course, majority of the Catholic bishops come from certain parts of the country, and therefore they seem to narrow it that way. The president has missed one point, that you can win an election through propaganda, but you can lead a people through facts, such that information getting to the public from the office of the president should be factual. And whenever there is a misstep, which he has already admitted in the past, that there was lack of effective communication with the public, it is his duty to effectively communicate with the public. But when they get into that defensive mode, we get worried that the government is not listening, and therefore the government has lost a very important constituency, not only here in Kenya, but all over the world. You remember those baptized Catholics internationally, out of the 6 billion people, there are 1.4 billion people who profess the faith of Catholic. And they should also remember the way Mheshimiwa Pugisha has explained very well, that a Catholic is a government in itself, in the sense that they have the hierarchy that is required, and information flow starts with the local church all the way to the Vatican. And that hierarchy is respected, so that any information carried by the priest at the local level, that information moves up through capillary system all the way to the bishop or the cardinal here in Kenya, for that matter, and it goes all the way to Rome. And therefore, when a time that you seem to be interfering with that kind of order, you're interfering with the conscience of the nation, as it were. Now, the second issue is that it seems the president realized he's been totally exposed, because, of course, in WhatsApp, in all these social media platforms, the issues that were raised by the Catholic bishops are issues people are talking about every day. But you see, they were now put in concrete terms that the president realized now he's naked, right? And there is nowhere to go. And instead of answering them by saying we are addressing some of these issues, he almost created the feeling that the Catholic bishops were lying to the public. And I think this is not going to sit pretty well with the church and also with many people. And therefore, the regime was shaken to the core. And that is why they reacted in a way they did, and why they almost talked, almost they were trying to outshout each other on why it should be done, saying the facts are different, without telling us which are these facts that are different from what we know. If it's the cost of living, we know what it is. The Catholic bishop, if it is corruption, we know what it is. If it is issues of misallocation of resources, even in today's headline, it is very clear that resources are being wasted by the government. So I feel it is high time the president allowed himself to a meeting, not even with Rachel, to call himself to his own meeting and ask himself, what is it that has gone wrong in this country? The reality has caught up with him. That yes, you might have said so many things against the former president, but now you are in charge and you have nobody to blame, because the last person to be blamed was Gachagua. Before that, there was Ford Foundation. Before that, there was Uhuru Kenyatta. And before that, there were many other people who were being blamed. Before that, there was also Raila. Now Raila is with him. Gachagua has left. So he has nobody else to blame but himself. And the best way to do is to accept reality that he is the president, and being the president, he has a responsibility to solve the problems afflicting our society.
All right. We are now getting to the last 10 minutes of this show, and I think this is a time where we take about 3 minutes each to advise the president. He's come from a very difficult week, both with the church and his trip to Embu, which more or less showed him that Malima inaweza kuwa imeenda. So, Bwana Kisia, we start with you. Please advise the head of state.
Well, I'll make an attempt, but I must tell my good friend, the president, His Excellency the President, that he has monumentally failed. He has failed the economy. He has failed our education system. He has failed in public health. He has put people in pain. Now, he, like my senior brother Pogisho and Kiro have said, I think this is a Damascus moment for him and for this country. For the religious leaders, and in this case for the Catholics, it is a moment for them to also reflect. They have done very well. They have advised the president. I want them to move from the pulpit. I want them to now stop the press conferences and honor the spiritual five. The spiritual five include Gitare, Njoya, Muge, the late Muge, Okulu, and Bwana Nzeki. They must be honored. These were top spiritual leaders who at the moment of need joined Kenyans for the second liberation. I want the religious leaders currently to join Kenyans, to join the Gen Z, to join the millennials in liberating this country in our final liberation, the third liberation. For my president and my good friend, let him smell the coffee. Let him smell the coffee. Things are terribly bad. If I were him, if I were the president, and if he's listening to me and others who are honest, he must immediately disassociate himself with the so-called advisors. Because some of those advisors have never run a kiosk. They have not been a manager even in a bakery. So if you have not been a manager of anything, not even a kiosk, how can you transform yourself into an advisor? When you have somebody like Dr. Ndi, who is very well educated, talking about the closure of companies only affecting the privileged, yet he very well knows that the people he's referring to as privileged are Kenyans. They buy goods and services from hustlers, Mboga, Uber, that they also employ people, that when they're affected, even the hustlers will be affected. And you have somebody in your office, not even in an office, sitting in a minister's office, somebody sitting in State House advising you and talking the way he's talking. If I were the president, that fellow would not have a job by this morning. The other fellow, my good friend Maura Isaac, the man who knows that Kenyans are going through pain, that Kenyans are in pain, that Kenyans are starving, and he's telling Kenyans that our stomachs are so big. He made that statement. Very absurd. That Kenyans, from the time Ruto took over, our stomachs are just bulging. And yet we know that the only people whose stomachs are bulging and are full of air and other things are people who are close to the president. And we see them, and we are not blind. Those are the people who have transformed from their pockets upwards. Kenyans are suffering. You know, when you talk about transformation, you're talking about a remarkable change. For them, we can see a remarkable change. For Kenyans, we can see pain. Finally, Fred, I would advise my friend and president that he must now start working. He has nobody to blame. He has no Gachagua to blame. He has no Uhuru to blame. The person who used to blame, called my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, has joined him. So now let him focus. He made promises to the people of Kenya. He talked about free bundles. We have not seen them. He talked about lowering the electricity cost. We have not seen that happening. In any case, it has gone up. He talked about stopping the borrowing spree. Uhuru left 7 trillion. We're heading towards 10 trillion. He talked about reviving Galana project. It is dead. He talked about giving newborn babies free diapers. Can't even provide the free diapers, for heaven's sake. These are promises he made to the unborn children. He talked about lowering the cost of gas. Can that happen? He talked about humane evictions and making sure that these people are treated like human beings. We have seen what happened in our city. The evictions were brutal, even to the extent that we lost lives. Mr. President, you talked about stopping extrajudicial killings. For heaven's sake, you're a Christian. Stop them. Stop them, Mr. President. You talked about dealing with corruption. You talked about stopping tribalism. You talked about efficiency. Mr. President, your list is long. Start working.
Thank you, Bwana Kisia. Bwana Pogisi, your turn.
Well, I appreciate that the president has a vision for the country in his mind, and he would like to see that vision rolled out. He has a very short time left. The circumstances now mean that he has to begin by stopping the travels, stopping all these promises. Sit down, Mr. President. Somebody says sit down with yourself. I say sit down, and if possible, be there with people you trust, the people who can tell you the truth, the people who will tell you that the 3 years are going to come and go, and we'll have done very little. This is the moment to reflect on what among the things that we have promised Kenyans touch the lives of Kenyans quickly and reverse the unfortunate situations like in health. Promise that. I would say instead of getting more and more projects coming, I've seen the Nairobi River, whatever coming, I've seen promises of building this tomorrow, building that tomorrow. Those can be said. But seriously speaking, the president needs to begin to work. And how do you work? Hold people hold people to account. The people you have appointed to deal with health, for example, how are they helping Kenyans in explaining the things that about SHA, whatever it is? It takes the president to come and explain. Why does the president have to be the one explaining everything? When it comes to housing, he's the one coming to explain about housing. And the truth is anybody giving the right information to the president? And if the president should find out that people are not giving him the right information before he speaks, those are the people who should be fired because they have misled him. They have made him feel like work is going on. There is a lot of work going on. By the way, according to the president, there's a lot of good things going on in Kenya. And he's very busy telling people that. So maybe there are people who are not giving him the proper information. Can somebody say to the president, take the bitter pill, let the truth be told to you about the state of things right now, and please begin. I don't know whether presidents can take a day off, take a week off, and go and rethink over these matters, instead of being so busy trying to shut, to block things here and there. I am of the opinion that the president now requires good friends, requires truthful men and women, so that he can actually know what to do next. It's a very difficult situation.
Asante Bwana Pogisio. Finally, Bwana Karua, you have about a minute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fred, for this opportunity. And let me also advise our good friend, the President, that it takes a man to be realistic for him to be able to walk the distance. And his vision, however good it is, must have enough people that they can share together that vision and be factual about what you say, because Kenyans know better what is happening on the ground because they feel it. The Catholic bishops were not talking out of their own issues. They were talking about realities that are taking place almost in every village in this republic. And therefore, you are deluding yourself by expecting that the Catholic bishops should listen to you instead of you listening to them.
All right, thank you so much, Bwana Kipruto Arap Karua, Philip Kisia, and Samuel Pogisio, our panelists, this and every other Monday. As we continue looking at the headlines today, a lot of discussions around the church and President William Ruto's relationship with the church and also with the Mount Kenya region. Gazeti la Taifa Leo linauliza swali, mlima imeenda? Other quick highlights here, quoting the church, Ruto Rigathi all-out war. Yes, and Matiang'I taps Botswana poll papers as he looks towards 2027. Hopefully he'll be among the presidential candidates. These are just some of the headlines we are seeing on the front pages today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time at TV47. Monday Blitz coming up after the break. Yes, we've just come from an international football break. Quite a number of matches played, including Kenya versus Zimbabwe, and Kenya being knocked out of international football through that 1-1 draw with Zimbabwe. These are some of the discussions coming up. Shutterboy and Fred Arocho in studio with their analysts as well. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Have a lovely day.